Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to our online showcase. Our theme for today is focused on simplifying your journey to the cloud. Before we begin, I really want to start by thanking each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. We believe these discussions today will be very valuable, as we will be providing guidance as to the types of technologies that are available to help you wherever you may be on your journey to the cloud, as well as how to apply those technologies to provide business value. I also want to thank IBM for their partnership with this event. We have some great subject matter experts here today that are going to share their thoughts, as well as highlight key features of the IBM technologies, which help solve the challenges that organizations are experiencing. And for those of you who may not know MicroStrategies, we are a technology solutions provider, enabling modern businesses to leverage technology investments and drive business value. We recognize the many complexities that organizations are facing today with respect to how to integrate cloud technologies into their organization. And with that also comes confusion. We work with our customers every day to navigate those complexities, as well as help them remove that confusion. We have a strong team of professionals with many years of experience in architecting, implementing, and operating traditional and modern technologies that you need to run your business every day. Today, we're going to focus on three key areas. We're going to focus on data and analytics, application development and integration, and security. We chose these areas because we believe, with our experience in working with customers, that these pose the greatest challenges to organizations, but they also present and have the greatest impact when adopting cloud technologies. With respect to data analytics, organizations are struggling when it comes to embracing machine learning and AI. They're focused on trying to remove the restrictions that existing point solutions present, as well as the friction of legacy applications and how they impede their progress when they're trying to drive value using these modern technologies. And with respect to security, we are all continuing to live the ever-changing threat landscape. There are too many tools that we have to deal with, and there's just not enough time. And we really need to provide a modern platform for the valued security professionals so they are able to hone in on the real threats that are impacting our businesses. And with respect to the mission-critical applications, which do not easily port to the public cloud, organizations are struggling with the years of investments they've made in these core applications and the business logic that's embedded in them. But they need to utilize modern cloud-based technologies to enable that business value faster. And they need to do it where it makes sense for their businesses, all while providing the governance and security required of those core business applications. If these challenges resonate with you, you'll find our sessions today very informative. We'll provide insights into the options that you have, and we'll be exploring the types of challenges organizations are experiencing. We'll be providing the perspectives on how we feel that we could best approach those challenges. We'll demonstrate some technology available to help, as well as discuss ways that you can apply those technologies to drive business value. For those of you who have an existing install base with IBM, if it's data analytics or application development and integration or security, there are paths which allow you to upgrade your current investments and take advantage of the technology showcased here today. If you have questions, please reach out to your IBM team or your MicroStrategies team, and we can help you define that best approach based upon your business objectives. We truly hope you enjoy today's discussions, and we hope that they provide the value that you need to drive the key business decisions for your business.
It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Sean Gavin. Sean is a director of hybrid cloud sales with IBM America. His overall team helps clients realize their goals in all aspects of building modern, open, hybrid cloud and/or cloud native environments. Sean, the floor is yours.
All right. So first, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Kelly and team. We really appreciate the opportunity. And I do want to upfront apologize. I was the technical glitch. So it's, par for the course sometimes when you do these things. And I actually thought I've got kids doing homeschooling. Maybe they're cutting out my videos. You never know what's going on. But either way, let's suffice to say that it's not who I am and what I look like, but hopefully what I say here today. But for any of you who do want to see what I look like or connect with me, I do always encourage that. So my name is Sean Gavin. I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts. As you know, Kelly said, I've got responsibility for a variety of different things here in the Americas, which is Canada, the US, and Latin America. And much of that is truly centered, in the scope of application platforms, integration technologies, multi-cloud management, and then it goes into the spectrum of what I'll call kind of edgier things, whether that's blockchain, actually our edge platforms, et cetera. But the beauty of my role is I get to talk to a lot of customers like yourself. And so with that said, I do want to thank you for those that are IBM customers for your investment in IBM and partnership with us. And for those of you who are not an IBM customer, I mean, hopefully I think you'll find this session today beneficial, and we'd love to continue a dialogue with you. And frankly, it is a dialogue, right? You know, it's always interesting when we go into clients and we kind of discuss where they're at in their journey, and it's never a static, we've arrived state. In fact, you know, one thing I often reflect on with clients is actually a study that McKinsey did not that long ago, and it's really good. And I've done a session before like this, and I know some people wanted this, and I would say if what I say here is of interest and you want to kind of read about it, we'd be more than happy to send it to you. But the study was really interesting. They interviewed a bunch of CIOs. I think it's something in the order of around 150 or so here in the US and some abroad. And they asked them a variety of different questions. And really what the point of this study was about was whether or not people were realizing, quote unquote, a digital transformation, and where cloud was in that transformation, right? And when you think about that, and a lot of times we talk about my goal is to get on the cloud, right? And for many clients, you know, that's been a lift and shift strategy. So the question that I pose here, you know, which is really to you, is what is your goal, right? The journey will define the end, but you need to kind of know your goal. And when McKinsey did this study, they asked the CIOs, you know, how many of you have responsibility for the top 3 business priorities of your CEO? Because at the end of the day, hopefully those are our goals. And nearly 60% of them said they have responsibilities for those 3. In fact, I did a symposium with a customer and he said, actually, we have 10 priorities, and our CIO has 9 of those 10 priorities. So it will vary, certainly, but the 3 that jumped out were, and this is by order, were revenue growth in terms of business priority, improved agility and faster time to market, and then improving their operational cost structures. In some cases, that might be, you know, finding alternative ways to save money. So I really feel like for many of us here on the call today, that's the part that we need to kind of keep front and center. Is it a matter of just getting somewhere, or is cloud really just a catalyst for something else? And I would argue that it is. It's a catalyst, you know, for the things that you are looking to do as a business to differentiate yourself in the market. I mean, look at this year. How many of us have had to really transform the strategies? I know I have had to do this, where I started in January and February, and to a certain extent March, what we were going to do this year in our go-to-market model, and how we had to shift that, digitally, how we had to shift our onboarding experience digitally, how we've had to shift our communication mechanisms. It's very fluid. But I think fundamentally, when we think about those objectives, some of those imperatives, whether it is revenue, agility, faster time to market, improving our operational cost structures, we think about the things, the levers we have inside of our organization and what it is that we can take advantage of that can improve that speed. That could be adopting new tools or techniques, which I think is a really important word. When we think about cloud, I actually look at cloud less about the environmental concepts of cloud and more about the techniques that companies are taking advantage of through cloud, whether that's on-prem, whether that's, you know, private cloud, whether that's containerized and it's a matter of definition, or truly in a public cloud entity. You think about where you are in your particular journey, right? What does that transformation mean to your business, both from a product standpoint, where are we, what level of maturity, and what are the compromises or we make, as the agility that we need to have organizationally, and the alignment that we in IT need to have with the entities whom we're working with, and how do we optimize around that. And then operationally, what are the levers that we have to our advantage there, right? I mean, certainly there's reduction in headcount, which we don't need to go down, but I think a lot of times it's looking at what are ways that we can drive automation. How do we underpin our applications regardless of where they are so that we have greater insights and can respond with a higher level of efficiency? And then the question is, where do we modernize? Is it in place? Do we take what we have today? Do we shift? And if we do shift, what does that mean? So it's interesting. I had a conversation with a bank. They've been around for about 100 years. They're in the middle of America, right? A flyover bank, if you will. And this bank, they're highly regulated. So they do not do a lot in the cloud. They have Salesforce.com. They define that as cloud, although it's SaaS. And they have a couple of applications that they do in the cloud, but by and large, much of their data, much of their core business processes sit on premise today. And they needed to figure out a way that they could compete differently. And they decided one of their top principles was to engage in alternate ecosystems, right? They wanted derivative forms of revenue that could take advantage of their existing infrastructure and go to market. And if you think about it, it's a bank, and think about how we engage at banks, both on a mobile platform basis. But what they looked at were many of these startup companies like Personal Capital, companies like Acorn or Mint. And what they wanted to be able to do is give the experience that they have through those mediums, but expose their enterprise digitally. And one of the comments that they made, and I won't get into what they did around refactoring their data through APIs, creating digital gateways both on premise and through other clouds. There's a technical merit to this, but a quote that they shared with me about a month ago was the following: digital evolution is not a strategy in and of itself. It's a set of principles that are deployed to enable the client intimacy and operational excellence goals of a business strategy. And to me, that completely summed up what we've just been talking about. Their full alignment to transforming and aligning themselves digitally was tied explicitly to their business strategy. But what did they have to do? And so really that's kind of the right side of this screen. What is holding people back when they think about this catharsis of I've got to go to cloud, right? I think fundamentally it comes down to sort of three major anchor tenets, at least from the perspective that we've had with our clients. First is, and I think if you can't get over this one, it will be a challenge, right? Meaning you will find that you may not gain the quote unquote levels of agility and business benefits, and that is skill and culture. And we're going through that right now as a company. I'm going through it with my immediate team, and it's a constant evolution. You can't undermine it. But when you think about the cloud native techniques that are out there, right, whether those are microservices and the assumption of where containers play a role in our strategy, what does it mean to go from an agile architecture, sort of a modular architecture from where you are today possibly, which is defined maybe a little bit more monolithic and stovepipe. How do you break those silos down architecturally? But how do you also do it organizationally? Like there's two motions going on right there. How do you begin to accommodate for open source if you're going down that strategy? And another kind of emerging one that we're speaking with a lot of clients around, whether you call it DevSecOps or whether you define it as SRE, Site Reliability Engineer, how do you align your operational teams to gain some of those cost benefits and insights? So this blend of skill and culture are fundamental to many of our client strategy. In fact, we had a customer panel at an annual event that we did. And on that panel, you had clients like Walmart, you had United Airlines, we had UMB Bank, and then we had two other business partners. And it was what we thought was going to be a discussion around technology became 50 minutes of a discussion on agile and what that means to them and where the gains they made organizationally, combining that with the technology. So that to me is fundamental, skill and culture. Then how do you accommodate for that as it relates to your enterprise processes that you have today? How do you bring those techniques in and embrace the workloads that you're at, and where do you go to maturity? And then lastly, enterprise readiness, whether that's security, compliance, what are day two operations going to look like to you should you begin to modernize in this capacity? So that was the journey we started on. about 2.5 years ago. And frankly, it led up to a lot of things. And the focus that we've had has been, how do we help clients achieve some of these objectives, and how do we underpin those objectives technically, and then bring to bear with our partnership with companies like MicroStrategies and others to achieve that goal, whether that is defining best practices, proven methods of engagement and tools, this capability of building once and deploying anywhere, taking the merits of cloud being somewhat of a myth in the standpoint that it isn't cloud in and of itself, it's the techniques, whether that's defined on premise or virtualized, containerized, etc. And how do you do this in a way that's open yet secure? So that was the investment that we made. So if you think about IBM's acquisition of Red Hat, or maybe even Red Hat's acquisition of IBM, we needed to have the underpinnings, a foundational structure that allowed our clients to modernize in place, yet to be future-proofed in the event that they want to move, while instrumenting into them or into that foundational layer an architected infrastructure that is less monolithic and more modular, meaning if I want to break apart aspects of my enterprise into pieces, composable pieces, I can move those, whether that's a combination of on-premise elements, whether that's the ability to have things scattered into multiple clouds, and yet have visibility, traceability amongst all of these to begin to monitor those assets and take advantage of that. And we wanted to couple that with the investments that we've made and many of you have made in our existing technologies to give that level of innovation. And that really fundamentally became the premise for our cloud packs. And so we've had a number of different cloud packs. This is just a couple, and I think the benefit of today's session is we're going to kind of dig into the gains in each of these cloud packs and what they mean, but this is just an example of a few of them. Both our cloud pack for automation, our multi-cloud management, and Watson AI Ops, our cloud pack for integration, and cloud pack for application. So just a quick couple of comments I would make on this. So as part of this strategy, IBM has set aside nearly $1 billion to expand not just the investment in this element, but an ecosystem for our clients. Lisa made a comment at the beginning of this session, right? Do you kind of piece part your way into innovation? How do you look at platforms? What does that mean to your enterprise? And how do you take together an ecosystem of best of breed, et cetera? So some of these are underpinnings to where we can drive further automation. So for example, we acquired a company called WDG out of Brazil to underpin our automation platform with RPA. And I think you will see, for those of you that have other investments, say in IBM's integration portfolio, further innovations coming into 2021. Some of this is under NDA, which we can share with you if you're interested, of where RPA and other forms of AI begin to play a role in the development and orchestration of integration processes, right? So these aren't just siloed investments, they're actually becoming ways that we can speed your time to development and thus time to market. So if you look at our multi-cloud manager, what have we done in that space? Well, we've said, hey, there are some ways that we can take advantage of our management of multi-clouds, but we want to bring in other cloud native techniques that help our clients do that optimally on a cost basis. So what does that mean? We need to look at logging. How do we scale logging? One of the challenges with logging is the amount of data it provides. And so we've partnered with a company called Humio that really flattens that curve to allow companies to log at scale. When we think about containers, security in a containerized world, which is a very ephemeral reality, is a problem. Sysdig, which is an agentless way for us to do that at scale and across any kind of Kubernetes environment, was fundamental. And we have many other partnerships, whether that's Slack or Turbonomic. And just 2 weeks ago, we announced a very strategic partnership with ServiceNow. And the benefit of that is really tied to AI Ops in providing more predictive insights and gains for clients to drive automation. And as you move to the integration portfolio, I will say that in about 2 weeks, you will see a phenomenal announcement that we're going to make in this space. But centered in the integration is a unified platform where we've brought in things like an asset repository. We're speeding up the development by having more composable and reusable assets, tracing, Grafana, open tracing. Let me just define that. And then on Cloud Pak for Applications, it's really centered about giving you choice and flexibility, right? Whether that's JBoss, WAS, taking advantage of other accelerators to help you modernize in place. So fundamentally, underpinning a multi-cloud strategy, giving you further automation that you can take advantage of in each one of those environments, and then full flexibility whether you decide you want to innovate in place and stay where you are, whether you want to move lock, stock, and barrel to drive that innovation, whether that's on IBM's cloud or on any third-party cloud, or frankly, if you want a combination of that. So I think that from my standpoint, that underpins where we've tried to flatten the curve, right? Reusable sets of assets, full operator level environments such that you can lower the barrier of entry as you go down a container strategy with each one of these application stacks. The ability to have flexibility, whether you want to consume these today or in the future, these capabilities, we can innovate in place. So if you're invested in IBM technology today, just because you go down a Cloud Pak path doesn't mean you have to move your entire environment. You can do it at the rate and pace of innovation you need and where you need. And then to begin to future-proof you. We knew many clients are beginning to adopt service meshes and Istio, taking advantage of open tracing, and then newer forms of integration, whether that's Kafka, et cetera. We're seeing a lot of that. And frankly, I think you'll see some interesting announcements on that front in the not so distant future. So let me start to bring this home. And where would we go next in this kind of a conversation? And I just shared some comments that we've gotten from customers where they've said, hey, geez, I'm looking to build a real-time or event-based application. In fact, we had a company down in the Southeast, which is a large grocer, and wanted to change the way they managed inventory management in real time, in particular in the COVID world, meaning if I go and make an order and I'm doing curbside pickup, I really need to make sure my inventory management systems are accurate and up to date. And Kafka is a really good way to do that for us. So what are ways that I can transform that? How do I actually look at a multi-cloud architecture? And what does that mean? What's my as is and to be state? How do I need to accommodate the business models that we have so that my IT and my development teams are agile alongside our lines of business that we're aligned with? And then, should you build a platform? Frankly, our argument is we've invested millions of dollars in doing that for you to get you to that point of being what I'll call more cloud native, wherever you define cloud and wherever that is going to exist. And then lastly, future-proofing the skills and the movement that you may like to get to. And so I would leave you with this, and that is frankly something we've done for many customers, and it's a partnership that we do with MicroStrategies. And whether you call it a cloud modernization workshop, whether you call it an integration workshop, an application modernization workshop, each one of the various silos of innovation we accommodate for in this experience. We used to do these obviously in person with our clients, but now we've digitized it completely with full whiteboarding experiences, sticky notes, everything. It's really good. We've done it with our design thinking workshop in our garage, and we bring it alongside with MicroStrategies. And the benefit of doing something like this is even if you don't do anything, it gives you a blueprint and a consideration for where and when you may want to. And the last piece I will say on this is more often than not, what we end up doing is investing in what I'll call a minimum viable pilot alongside yourself and MicroStrategies to realize what that art of the possible may be, whether that's done on our cloud, on your premises, in a container, or in a third-party cloud. So I'm going to kind of just bring it down to a level of first, hopefully there were a few nuggets in here that you can gain from. Secondly, I think walking away from this, this is just sort of self-reflection a little bit and maybe a reminder of what are those things that you're doing. Sometimes, we do activities, but we forget the outcomes. Reflecting on what those outcomes are that we're aligning to and to the business and the role that we play in not just architecting a technology from a technology standpoint, but from a people standpoint. And then lastly, how we, IBM, may be able to help you with respect to modernizing both in place and where that journey may want to go incrementally to your goals. So Lisa and Kelly, I'm going to pause and bring it to a close here. That was really what I wanted to kind of lay the foundations for this event that we have here today.
Thank you so much, Sean.